Maybe a question for you, Mr. Medja. Which segments of the businesses, because, you know, on the other side, companies would like to have more financing, but still there are some segments that banks are not willing to finance. For example, the construction, not at all. On the other side, the real estate, I know you will say we have too many real estate in our portfolio already. Some banks even say, till we don't solve the issue of Stožice, we will not put a single euro in a new real estate project. But on the other side, real estate or the construction has a huge influence on the other parts of the industries. So which segments you intend to focus in the future? Will you come back to the real estate business?
I think when talking about the segments and industries, of course, one can't ignore the state that those segments and industries are in right now. Of course, as a banker, you don't want to exclude any sector or any industry from doing business there. But the question that also comes to mind is, you know, does the segment currently have the capacity to produce cash flow to repay those debts? And currently, the construction sector, unfortunately, does not. By the way, we have to make a bit of a distinction between the construction sector, which is companies building things, and they should get paid on time by the developers of those projects. And actually, in my view, the developers of those projects are currently in bankruptcy, not the construction companies. The problem is just that these were the same legal entities that were doing both things, which is a bad business model.
I agree with you.
Right?
Mr. Krušec, it was mentioned many times today that capital is needed in Slovenia. So probably, at least in my opinion, the only way out are foreign investors. Will we finally open the doors for foreign investors? Will we do something with changing this mentality that everything has to stay in Slovenian hands, that to protect the national interest? And in addition to that, will we finally start the privatization of the still majority of state-owned companies in Slovenia? We are talking so long about that.
Yes, so as you know, now this law on the state sovereign fund has a provision in there that within a month there has to be a strategy adopted by the parliament, which will, so it's a very tight deadline, which will classify the state sovereign holdings into strategic, there where the government wants to keep majority, into portfolio, there where we are seeking for some yield, and into those for sale. So that's the first step. As you know, that nothing can be sold in this that is state-owned without the permission of the parliament, and this strategy will be adopted by the parliament. Only this will allow the state to start with some privatizations. Now, as regards the banks, we have adopted 2 decrees in the parliament in this summer, which allows the government to reduce its stake to 25+1, which means a controlling stake, so for the 2 largest banks, NLB and NKBM. So if there is a willing investor, tomorrow we have this possibility to do so. Now, the question is there an investor?
Really great discussion. You touched a little bit deeper insight, people, time, and so on. I really would like to focus on time. We learned in 2008, 2009, during really tough times, that our financial and banking system needs to be restructured. It's not from today. It's not from yesterday. We know that for many years. On the other side, here Janko said, we need to get the truth. We need to feel the truth. And we are today, 2012, end of 2012. And on the other side, your statement, we are making a loss month by month on the state P&L. We in businesses, we know very well what that means, making a loss month after month. And we need to be agile, we need to be dynamic, we need to react immediately, means yesterday. And I do believe that in Slovenia we have a challenge with the sense of urgency. Because listening to you, we don't have 1 million solutions, we have a couple of solutions. And we need to go into the execution. Yeah. And that's what we miss in Slovenia, execution.
Sure.
And we need to react immediately, not today, but yesterday. And we need to come together, restore the confidence, not just into the banks, but into the country. And you will get back the optimism on the faces of the people. And you have people motivated, they will move the mountains. And I really do believe the sense of urgency is the biggest challenge in our country. Thanks.
I can say, and this is what we are always, what we are saying also, that we had a law that was combining the bad bank and the state sovereign fund in preparation pre-summer. And then there were some threats with the referenda and so on, so we removed that. Now, if in the summer we had severe downgrades, it's still a question whether these downgrades would happen in such an extent if we would have passed this law, which had provisions on the bad bank and the state sovereign holding. That just shows that how seriously this government is taking a sense of urgency and how seriously we are tackling this execution, as you were saying. And that's why dealing with this acute problem of banks, we think that it's urgent and it needs to be done now. And that's why we are moving very, very on accelerated basis with this. This is what I can say with that.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting overview and very practical too and very quick. I only missed a reference to what is now in all newspapers, and especially after the outcome of the European Council on the 18th and 19th. That is euro and the measures that are under discussion in the European Union and that affect all of us. On banking union and all that. Perhaps the State Secretary would be the one to answer to this question, but your opinion is welcome in any case. Thank you.
Basically, we welcome very much the banking union, and we welcome that it's done swiftly, that will enable, in the first step, the ECB to oversee and supervise first, those banks that will access the ESM, the European Stability Mechanism. Second, the systemic banks, in which there are also 2 state-owned banks in Slovenia. And in the third stage, all the banks in the euro area. Now, of course, this will be together with the national regulator. What is very key is that this will enable the banks to go for capital to ESM. And basically, this will break this sovereign bank feedback loop. Because, yes, now sovereign is hurt because of the banking problems and banks are hurt because of the sovereign issues. And this can break this link, so we would very much welcome this. I don't know if you meant this or you meant the OMT of ECB, but...
I would like to ask if anybody made a calculation if we put 4 milliard euros to good bank, not to bad bank. And this good bank can act immediately, and I think it will be much higher multiplication, and leave the bad banks to live how long they can. And
so instead of bad bank, increase of capital. Yeah. New bank.
Well,
new bank.
There is a lot of questions like this that we received mainly from domestic audience. And we explain every time again that this 4 billion that is in the law, these are the guarantees. So this is not money, No, it won't be money. Why not? Because this is guarantees that the state will issue for the AMC, that it can issue bonds that will replace the bad assets in the banks. Now, if you ask in Ireland, they did the same. That's not involving money. It's just debt, because it's explicit debt that you have, but the AMC has received assets in return. So when the AMC is selling the assets, the debt will be decreased gradually. And we think that in medium term, this debt can be annulled, or it can be close to zero. So you see, this is not billions of cash. Ultimately, who will provide the cash, if these bonds are eligible, is the ECB. So you're asking now whether we can inject 4 billion of ECB money into a bank for recapitalization and then let the good bank start. This is absolutely prohibited. The ECB cannot issue money to recapitalize banks. And also the Spanish colleague, why Spain, what was the trigger for a Spanish banking program? It was an attempt to issue bonds, to go to the ECB for Bankia, to get the recap money and put it there as equity. This is prohibited. So 4 billion will be only debt incurred, but it will not involve any money from the state. We think that the recaps are maximum of 1 billion for possibly all 3 banks that will be in this scheme. And this is the money that we need to raise in markets, not the 4 billion. And this is, I think, important to distinguish.
I will not put the question, I will ask the banks from the business point of view to act as a short-term measure as fast as possible and help businesses restructure not only their debts, but also to help them, and I hope you have people with competencies and skills to help them also to restructure their businesses. These are 2, in my opinion, right now, very, very important issues with the Slovenian corporate sector. But otherwise, I would like, of course, thank you, all of you, for your valuable information, so also some solutions, and I hope Mr. Krušec will be able to implement some of these things. Thank you.